In the 17th century, Spain stretched from Europe to both Americas, and its kings influenced the politics of all of Europe. But despite this, it lost its majesty, becoming a minor power. We learn the reasons for the decline of one of the greatest empires. Ironically, one of Spain's main assets became its problem: silver. The silver and gold that flow from the New World do not bring happiness to Spain. They only dazzle with brilliance, obscuring true poverty. Contemporaries said that everything in Spain was expensive except silver. These words refer to the huge inflation that was triggered by the huge flows of silver and gold from America, while production remained at the same level. Historians speak of 400% inflation by 1600. The high prices caused the peninsula's population to become poorer, and Spanish goods became uncompetitive due to high prices. By the end of the 16th century, Spain was importing over 70% of manufactured goods, making it a dependent and industrially backward country. At the height of the Catholic Inquisition, a large number of Jews, who traditionally played the role of bankers at that time, were expelled from the peninsula. Many of them settled in Amsterdam, which in the future would make the city the ruler of Spanish trade. The Spanish merchants simply did not have enough money to master the huge trade from the Americas. So, over time, they became only intermediaries for merchants from Holland, who managed the trade of the Spanish Empire, taking away the main profits. Royal laws requiring foreign merchants to trade only in Seville had the opposite effect. Smuggling flourished, and with it, official corruption. As a result, Spanish ships loaded with colonial goods went to Amsterdam instead of Seville. Because of ineffective trade policy, together with a corrupt apparatus of officials, the royal treasury lost huge revenues.
Every day our people become poorer and the burden of taxes becomes unbearable. People see no hope, they are powerless before their own power.
The endless wars of Charles V and then his son Philip II devoured vast resources. The 80-year war cost Spain hundreds of millions of reals. Sources say that Spain spent 2 million reals a year to maintain an army in the Netherlands, which amounted to 40% of the annual budget. With the sinking of the Invincible Armada in 1588, the 10 million ducats spent on its construction and equipment went underwater. Military spending created huge debts. It wasn't until the reign of Philip II that Spain was declared bankrupt 3 times. Instead of restructuring their economic policies, the Spanish rulers, as usual, placed the country's debt burden on the peasants and townspeople, raising their taxes by up to 50%, while the numerous hidalgos and nobles paid no taxes at all, and royal money was used to build royal palaces and maintain lavish courts.
We eat on borrowed money and live in debt as if there were no tomorrow. A nation is destroyed by its own debts.
By the middle of the 17th century, the silver mines in the Americas began to run out, and in 1640, Portugal and its colonies seceded from Spain, which could not but affect the position of the empire. At the Battle of Rocroi in 1643, the Spanish suffered a heavy defeat at the hands of a more modern French army. This came to symbolize the future decline of the empire, and the Spanish infantry, which had dominated Europe, was no longer considered invincible. While England and Holland developed their financial systems with banks, stock exchanges, insurance companies, which later boosted industry and trade, Spain remained a medieval country. Instead of spending money on modernizing the country, the empire's budget was eaten up by corruption, the luxuries of the royal court, and endless wars. The ruling class was still the numerous nobles and the Catholic Church. The middle class, which played a major role in trade and industry, was small in number and had no influence on politics, while the rural population grew in numbers, turning Spain into a backward power.
The nation that oppressed other powers is now itself oppressed, and the corrupt officials care only for their own pockets.
Spain would remain a feudal country until the 20th century. Its economy was predominantly agrarian, and power was in the hands of the feudal lords. Relying on gold and silver from the colonies, Spain did not develop its own production, importing English and French goods, and the feudal lords were not interested in the development of a modern capitalist economy. Urban reforms undertaken in the 18th century failed to significantly modernize the empire due to serious resistance from elites within the country. In the middle of the 19th century, as Europe entered the industrial age, building railroad networks, Spain would not begin building railroads until the end of the 19th century. In the long term, this was reflected in the demise of the empire. In the struggle for geopolitical dominance, Spain could no longer compete with the more advanced powers. By the middle of the 18th century, the Spanish Navy consisted of 60 ships, while the English fleet was twice as large. English foreign trade was estimated at £20 million, while Spanish trade was estimated at less than 10 million. As a result of the War of the Spanish Succession, in 1701, Spain lost the Netherlands, Italy, and Gibraltar. During the Seven-Year War, in 1763, Florida was lost. And in the Battle of Trafalgar, in 1805 with the British, Spain finally lost its status as a maritime power. The decline of the empire as a result of the Napoleonic Wars spawned rebellions in America. By 1825, all colonies except Cuba and Puerto Rico were lost. In 1898, the American-Spanish War resulted in the loss of Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. Spain lost the remnants of its empire, and its status as a global empire was finally lost.